My friends, life is not merely about the circumstances we are born into. It is about the choices we make every single day. Choices are like the brushstrokes of a painter. They shape the canvas of our life. Every great story you've ever heard, every hero you've admired, every inspiring journey you've followed began with one courageous decision. Think about it. A choice to rise when others stayed down. A choice to forgive when anger seemed easier. A choice to walk the harder path when comfort was calling. Each moment of decision has the potential to change not only your destiny, but also the lives of countless others. We often believe greatness lies in big, extraordinary actions, but greatness is hidden in small daily choices. What we eat, how we respond, whom we help, and what we pursue. Over time, these seemingly small decisions become the defining chapters of our life story. So, as you reflect on your journey, ask yourself, what choices am I making today that will define my tomorrow? Remember, destiny is not written by chance, it is written by choice. And every great story, including yours, begins exactly there. Many people believe that their life is limited by the circumstances they were born into. They say, if only I had been born into a wealthier family, or if only my environment was different, or if only I had better opportunities. But the truth is, circumstances do not define who we become. Our choices do. Life presents each one of us with challenges, but what sets people apart is not the challenge itself, rather the decision they make in the face of that challenge. Think about a seed planted in two different soils. One soil is rich, fertile, and full of nutrients. The other is rocky, dry, and rough. Of course, the seed in fertile soil has an advantage, but even in the harsh soil, if that seed chooses to push, to fight through, to reach for the sunlight, it can still grow into a strong tree. The condition of the soil is a circumstance. The choice of the seed to grow despite it is what defines its future. In life, there are countless examples of people who were born in difficult circumstances but rose to greatness because they chose differently. History is full of leaders, thinkers, and creators who faced poverty, loss, rejection, or illness, but instead of being crushed by their situation, they decided to use their pain as fuel. The decision to rise above circumstances is what turned their ordinary existence into an extraordinary story. On the other hand, there are also those who had every privilege, comfort, wealth, education, and opportunity, but they chose a path of carelessness or apathy. Despite favorable circumstances, their choices led them to mediocrity or even destruction. This shows us something profound. It is not where you come from, but the decisions you make that shape where you are going. Every day, each of us is writing the script of our life. Circumstances give us the stage, but choices determine how the play unfolds. When a person faces betrayal, they can choose bitterness or forgiveness. When failure strikes, they can choose to give up or to learn and grow. When opportunity appears, they can choose fear and hesitation or courage and action. The choices we make, not the conditions we live in, create the quality of our life. Sometimes we overestimate the power of circumstances and underestimate the power of choice. For example, when someone is angry with us, the circumstance is outside our control, but our response is a choice. A choice. If we choose to react with anger, we add fire to fire. If we choose patience, we may calm the storm. Similarly, health is affected by genetics and environment, but every meal we eat, every step we take, every hour we sleep, those are choices, and they matter more in the long run than we imagine. Life is not fair, it never has been. Some people do get better circumstances, while others struggle from the start. But fairness is not the foundation of greatness, choices are. Circumstances can give you excuses or they can give you opportunities, but it is always a decision you make that will determine your path forward. If you keep blaming the world around you, you hand over your power. You take ownership of your choices, you reclaim control over your story. So when we say life is shaped more by choices than circumstances, it is a reminder of the incredible power each of us holds. You may not choose where you start, but you can always choose where you are headed. You may not choose what life gives you, but you can choose how you use it. And in that choice lies your freedom, your growth, and the greatness of your story. When we look at the great stories of history, whether they are about leaders, inventors, saints, or everyday heroes, we often admire the outcome. We admire their achievements, their courage, and the way they transformed their world. But what we often forget is that their journey did not begin with greatness. It began with a choice. One simple decision became the turning point that set everything else in motion. Imagine someone standing at a crossroad. To one side lies comfort, safety, and predictability. To the other lies uncertainty, risk, and growth. In that moment, the choice they make will decide what story they end up living. Every inspiring journey is born at such crossroads. The individual who dares to choose the difficult yet meaningful path becomes the author of an extraordinary life. Take, for example, an inventor who dedicates years of effort to solving a problem that others laugh at. The choice to believe in an idea, even when no one else does, is the spark that ignites the entire journey of discovery. Or think of a person who decides to forgive someone who has hurt them deeply. That single choice not only liberates their own heart, but often becomes a ripple of healing for many others. What seems like a small decision in the moment can become the seed of a story that inspires generations. His generation. Sometimes people wait for the perfect time to make their move. They say, oh, when conditions improve, I will decide. But the truth is, no inspiring story begins with ideal conditions. It begins when someone, despite the uncertainty, takes the first step. A mountain is not climbed in one leap. It is climbed by deciding to take the first step and then the next. Without that decision, the peak remains a dream. With it, the climb becomes a reality. Even in our daily lives, we underestimate the power of a single decision. A student deciding to commit to their studies instead of giving in to distraction may set themselves on the path to excellence. A young professional deciding to work with integrity instead of shortcuts may build a reputation that lasts a lifetime. A parent deciding to spend time with their child instead of being absorbed in business may change the emotional foundation of that child forever. Every inspiring journey does not have to be about fame or history. Sometimes it is about transforming the simple, ordinary moments into extraordinary ones through the choices we make. There is also something deeply empowering about realizing that one decision can change the trajectory of life. A person struggling with unhealthy habits might one day decide, enough is enough. That single moment of clarity becomes the beginning of a healthier, more fulfilling life. Someone caught in the trap of negativity might decide, I will shift my focus toward gratitude. That choice, though invisible to the world, slowly rewrites the script of their inner story. What truly makes a journey inspiring is not that it is free of difficulties, but that the decision made in the beginning carries the person through the challenges. When storms come, when failures happen, when doubts arise, the memory of that first courageous choice gives strength to keep going. It is like planting a flag in the ground saying, this is the direction I choose, and I will walk it regardless of how rough the road becomes. So whenever you feel overwhelmed by the distance of your dreams or the size of your goals, remember that every inspiring journey you admire in others began not with perfection, not with certainty, but with a single decision. The story you long to write with your life will not start when everything aligns. It will start the very moment you decide to take that first step. When we think about greatness, our minds often jump to grand moments, winning awards, leading nations, inventing something revolutionary, or leaving behind a legacy that people remember for centuries. But greatness is rarely built on one dramatic event. Instead, it is constructed brick by brick through the small, everyday choices we make. Life is not just shaped by the big decisions, but by the repeated little ones that silently accumulate over time. Consider the simple choice of how we spend the first hour of our morning. If every day we decide to waste it in distraction, the days turn into weeks, and the weeks into years of lost potential. But if we decide to invest those same minutes into prayer, reflection, exercise, or learning, that daily discipline compounds into wisdom, health, and strength of character. What seems like an insignificant choice today is actually writing tomorrow's results. Think about water dripping on a rock. One drop looks powerless. 10 drops feel the same. But thousands of drops falling consistently over time shape the rock itself. Our everyday decisions work the same way. Eating one unhealthy meal won't destroy your body, but repeating that choice for years creates disease. Speaking harshly once may not ruin a relationship, but repeating that tone daily builds walls that eventually break trust. On the other hand, small choices of kindness, respect, honesty, and discipline create invisible roots of greatness that eventually grow into towering trees. History remembers great achievements, But the people who made them knew that what truly mattered were the small, unseen decisions behind the scenes. An athlete's victory is not won on the day of the medal. It is won in the months of choosing discipline over laziness, of choosing training over excuses, of choosing focus over distraction. A musician's performance is not just about talent, it is about years of choosing practice when others chose comfort. A spiritual leader's wisdom is not born in a moment, it is cultivated through years of choosing reflection, humility, and service over pride. Our lives are the sum of these small decisions. The way we speak to people daily creates the kind of relationships we carry. The way we treat our body daily determines the energy we live with. The way we use our time daily decides whether our life becomes meaningful or wasted. No great life is built by accident. It is built by intention, one choice at a time. And yet, many of us underestimate these little decisions because they don't show immediate results. When you choose to read instead of scroll, it doesn't make you a scholar in a day. When you choose patience instead of anger, the world doesn't suddenly applaud. But greatness is subtle in its beginnings. Small victories compound silently until one day the results speak so loudly that the world notices. Even failure becomes manageable when we understand this principle. You don't need to transform your entire life in a single moment. You only need to make one good choice today, and then repeat it tomorrow, and then again the next day. Over time, those choices create momentum, and momentum creates transformation. The power is never in one massive leap. It is in the consistent, deliberate steps forward. So if you ever wonder what path your life is heading toward, don't just look at your dreams, look at your daily decisions. They are the invisible architects of your destiny. Every smile you give, every word you choose, every habit you build is laying a foundation. And one day, when you step back and see the structure of your life, you'll realize it was the small, everyday choices that built it all. In every generation, there are countless people who live ordinary lives, following the same routines, thinking the same thoughts, and walking the same paths as everyone else. But every now and then, a few individuals break away from the crowd. They dare to think differently, to act differently, to dream differently. What separates them is not that they are more intelligent or more privileged. It is that they made courageous choices when others chose comfort. Courageous choices are rarely easy. They often involve risk, uncertainty, and sometimes even loneliness. To stand up for what is right when the world prefers silence takes courage. To chase a dream that no one else believes in requires courage. To walk away from dishonesty when it could give you quick success takes courage. It is in those moments of decision that the true leaders of life are born. Followers look for safety, leaders look for meaning. Followers wait for approval, leaders follow conviction. And that difference is marked by the choices they make. Think of history's reformers, innovators, and visionaries. At some point in their journey, each of them faced a moment where they had to choose between blending in with the crowd or standing out with courage. They could have chosen silence to avoid criticism, but instead they chose to raise their voice. They could have chosen comfort, but instead they chose sacrifice. That single decision to embrace courage made them leaders, not because they sought power, but because they refused to betray their values. But this principle isn't limited to famous people. It applies to every one of us, A young person who decides to say no to peer pressure is displaying leadership. A parent who chooses to work hard with integrity rather than take shortcuts is leading by example. An employee who stands up against unfair practices, even if it risks their position, shows more leadership than someone who blindly obeys for the sake of convenience. Leadership is not about position, it is about courage. Courageous choices are also contagious. When one person dares to step out, others find the inspiration to do the same. A single voice of truth in a room of silence can give strength to 100 others who were too afraid to speak. A single act of kindness in a culture of indifference can awaken compassion in others. Leadership is not about commanding people. It is about showing the way through the boldness of one's decisions. Of course, courage does not mean the absence of fear. Fear will always be present when we stand on the edge of uncertainty. The difference between a follower and a leader is that the follower waits for fear to disappear, while the leader chooses to act despite the fear. The decision to act, even trembling, is what creates progress. Over time, those courageous choices build resilience, confidence, and influence. The irony is that people often admire leaders after the results are visible, but rarely do they recognize the lonely moments of decision that created that path. The applause comes later, but the choice comes first. Leaders are remembered for the outcomes, but they are defined by the courage they displayed when no one was watching, when the future was unclear and when the risks were real. So in your own life, whenever you are faced with a difficult decision, remember that your choice has the potential to set you apart. If you choose the path of courage, you may face resistance, discomfort, and even fear. But over time, those choices shape you into someone who doesn't just live life but leads it. Someone who lights the way for others. That is the power of courageous choices. They separate the ones who follow from the ones who inspire. Forgiveness is one of the most difficult yet most liberating choices a person can ever make. When someone hurts us, betrays our trust, or causes us pain, the natural instinct is to hold on to the anger, the resentment, or even the desire for revenge. It feels justified because the wound is real. Yet what we often fail to realize is that by clinging to bitterness, we chain ourselves to the very pain we want freedom from. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past. It is about releasing ourselves from its grip. When we choose to forgive, we are not declaring that what happened was right. We are not excusing the wrong or pretending that the hurt never existed. Instead, we are making a conscious decision to no longer let that wound control our present or dictate our future. In many ways, forgiveness is not a gift we give to the other person. It is a gift we give ourselves. It is a gift we give ourselves. It is the act of saying, I will not let your actions define the quality of my heart. Think of a person carrying a heavy stone everywhere they go. Over time, the weight exhausts them, drains their energy, and limits their ability to live freely. Resentment works the same way. It weighs us down silently, taking away our peace and joy. When we forgive, it is like putting down that stone. The other person may or may not change, but we regain our freedom. That is the hidden power of forgiveness. It heals the giver first. But forgiveness also has a ripple effect on the receiver. Sometimes the one who caused pain is unaware of the depth of their actions, and at other times they carry guilt they don't know how to handle. When forgiveness is extended, it can awaken a sense of responsibility, humility, and even transformation in the person who is forgiven. Of course, not everyone responds this way, but in many cases, forgiveness plants a seed that can grow into reconciliation and change. We see this truth not just in personal relationships, but in societies and nations. History shows that some of the greatest movements for peace and unity were born from leaders who chose forgiveness over vengeance. Retaliation might bring short-term satisfaction, but it only continues the cycle of hatred. Forgiveness, however, has the power to break the chain, to create a new beginning where none seemed possible. Forgiveness also requires courage because it often feels like surrender. People fear that if they forgive, they are giving away their strength. But in reality, forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. Anyone can hold on to anger. It takes real courage, though. The weak are prisoners of resentment, but the strong rise above it, proving that their heart is greater than their hurt. It is also important to remember that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still choose healthy boundaries. Forgiveness is about releasing the poison of anger within you, not about allowing continued harm. It is about inner freedom, not blind tolerance. When understood this way, forgiveness becomes a powerful act of self-respect as well as compassion. In our everyday lives, opportunities to forgive arise constantly. Sometimes in small ways, like being cut off in traffic, and sometimes in deep ways, like betrayal by a close friend. Every time we choose forgiveness, we choose peace over turmoil, healing over bitterness, and growth over stagnation. Slowly, this habit transforms not only our relationships, but also our character. So whenever you face hurt, pause and reflect. Will holding on bring you healing, or will letting go set you free? Forgiveness is not easy, but it is one of the most powerful choices we can make. It heals the heart of the one who gives it, and has the potential to awaken light in the one who receives it. And in that choice, both lives are changed. One of the greatest battles we all face is between what feels good now and what will feel good later. Comfort calls to us in the present moment. It is easy, it is pleasant, and it requires no effort. Discipline, on the other hand, demands effort, sacrifice, and often discomfort. But here lies the paradox of life. Comfort may satisfy us today, but leave us empty tomorrow, while discipline may challenge us today, but reward us for a lifetime. Think about the difference between someone who chooses to hit the snooze button every morning and someone who chooses to rise early to exercise or study. In the moment, both choices seem small, almost trivial. Yet, over months and years, the difference becomes enormous. The one who chose comfort ends up with regret, wishing they had invested their time more wisely. The one who chose discipline enjoys strength, clarity, and opportunities that only consistent effort can bring. Growth never happens in the comfort zone. A seed cannot grow into a tree unless it breaks through its shell. Muscles cannot grow unless they are stretched, strained, and tested. Minds cannot expand unless they are challenged, questioned, and disciplined. Discipline is the soil in which greatness takes root. Without it, potential remains just that, potential unfulfilled and wasted. What makes discipline so powerful is its compounding effect. One disciplined act may not change your life, but repeated daily, it transforms your entire future. The student who disciplines themselves to study an extra hour each day will not just learn more facts, they will develop the habit of focus that will serve them in every aspect of life. The artist who disciplines themselves to practice daily will not just improve their skills, they will cultivate patience, creativity, and resilience. The entrepreneur who disciplines themselves to persist through rejection will not just build a business, they will build character. Comfort is always tempting because it gives immediate relief. Watching another episode, eating another dessert, postponing another task. These things feel pleasant in the moment, but what they steal from us is invisible. Our growth, our time, our strength, and ultimately our future. Discipline, on the other hand, often feels painful at first. It requires saying no when you want to say yes. It requires effort when you crave ease. Yet the reward it gives, confidence, achievement, and fulfillment, is far greater and far more lasting than temporary comfort. Even spiritually and emotionally, discipline plays a central role. Choosing discipline over comfort in our speech helps us avoid words that could hurt relationships. Choosing discipline over comfort in our emotions helps us respond with patience instead of anger. Choosing discipline over comfort in our thoughts helps us focus on gratitude instead of negativity. Over time, these inner disciplines create a life filled with peace and purpose. The most inspiring people in history did not get there because life was easy for them. They got there because they chose discipline when comfort was available. They trained their minds, bodies, and hearts to endure difficulties for the sake of something greater. And while others were distracted by short-term pleasures, they built a foundation of long-term growth. So the question is not whether we will face the choice between discipline and comfort. We face it every single day. The real question is which one we value more, the fleeting ease of now or the lasting growth of tomorrow. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you make an investment in your future self. An investment that always pays dividends far greater than the cost you feel in the present moment. Every decision we make is more than just a choice between two options. It is a reflection of what we value most deeply. Our decisions are like a mirror, showing the world and ourselves who we truly are inside. We may speak of what we believe, we may tell others about our principles, but when the moment of decision arrives, it is our actions, not our words, that reveal our true character. Imagine two people facing the same situation. Both find a wallet filled with money lying on the street. One quietly takes it for themselves, while the other looks for its rightful owner. The circumstance is identical, but the decisions are completely different. Why? Because the values driving those decisions are different. One values self-interest above honesty, while the other values integrity above gain. It is not the situation that defines them, but the choice they make in that moment. Life constantly presents us with such moments, some significant. Choosing to speak the truth when a lie could save us embarrassment shows our commitment to honesty. Choosing to stand by a friend in their darkest hour, even when it is inconvenient, shows our loyalty. Choosing to admit a mistake rather than cover it up shows our humility. Each of these decisions is a window into the invisible values that guide us. The interesting thing about decisions is that they cannot be faked for long. A person may claim to value kindness, but if their decisions repeatedly show harshness or neglect, the truth of their heart becomes evident. Similarly, someone may not talk much about their values, But if their decisions consistently show compassion, generosity, or fairness, those values shine brighter than any words ever could. Our choices speak louder than our claims, and over time they write the story of who we are. Gara. This is why it is so important to align our decisions with our highest values. When we know what we stand for, making decisions becomes clearer, even in difficult situations. If we value honesty above all, we will tell the truth, even when it costs us. If we value growth, we will choose the harder path of learning rather than the easier path of stagnation. If we value family, we will choose time with loved ones over distractions. Values act as a compass, and decisions are the steps we take guided by that compass. Of course, aligning decisions with values is not always easy. Temptations, pressures, and fears often pull us away from our principles. It is easy to compromise when the stakes are high, but it is in those very moments that our true self is tested. A tree's strength is not proven on calm days, but in storms. And our values are proven not when life is easy, but when life demands sacrifice. Over time, consistent decisions shaped by strong values build trust and respect. People know they can rely on someone whose actions match their principles. Leaders who make decisions rooted in fairness earn loyalty. Friends who make decisions rooted in love earn deep bonds. Families built on decisions of patience and respect thrive in unity. This is the invisible architecture of life. Our values shaping our decisions and our decisions shaping our destiny. So whenever you face the choice, pause and reflect. What does this decision say about me? Am I acting out of fear or out of integrity? Am I following convenience or following principle? Because at the end of the day, long after the immediate results of a decision fade, what remains is the reflection of who we are. And who we are is never determined by words. It is revealed by the decisions we choose to make. When we make a decision, it's easy to think that the consequences will remain limited to us. We often believe it's my life, my choice, my consequence. But the reality is far more interconnected. Every choice we make sends ripples outward, touching the lives of people around us, sometimes in ways we cannot even see. Just like a stone dropped into a pond creates waves that spread far beyond the point of impact, our choices reach far beyond ourselves. Think of a parent who chooses patience instead of anger when their child makes a mistake. That choice not only shapes the child's self-confidence in that moment, but also plants a seed of trust and safety that will influence their relationship for years. Or consider a teacher who chooses to encourage rather than criticize. That simple decision might awaken hidden potential in a student, changing the trajectory of their entire life. The choice may seem small to the giver, but to the receiver, it can be life-changing. Even choices that appear private have public consequences. A person who chooses honesty in business builds trust, not only for themselves, but also for their community. People begin to believe that fairness is possible. On the other hand, when someone chooses dishonesty for personal gain, the loss of trust spreads far wider than their own reputation. It erodes the faith others place in systems, relationships, and even humanity itself. Our choices and attitude also shape others. Walk into a room with negativity, and you will drag the energy of everyone down. Walk into the same room with hope and encouragement, and you lift the spirits of those around you. A smile, a kind word, a patient response. These are decisions that can change the atmosphere of a family, a workplace, or even a society. The choice we make in our hearts silently writes itself into the hearts of others. History offers countless examples of how individual choices impacted the masses. One leader's decision to promote peace instead of war changed the lives of millions. One scientist's choice to persist through failure brought inventions that benefit humanity to this day. On the other side, history also remembers the devastating consequences of leaders who chose greed, hatred, or violence. Their decisions harmed not just themselves, but generations of people. This truth is sobering. The power of choice is never limited to the chooser. Even in ordinary life, our choices ripple in unseen ways. Choosing to help a stranger may inspire them to help someone else. Choosing kindness to someone who is struggling may prevent them from giving up hope. Choosing responsibility in our work may create opportunities for others. We may never know the full extent of how far our influence travels, but the ripples are real. This is why awareness is so important in decision making. If we think only of ourselves, we may choose recklessly. But when we recognize that our choices affect families, friends, colleagues, and even strangers, we begin to act with more responsibility. We realize that our life is not an isolated island, but part of a vast ocean where every wave touches another. So the next time you face a decision, ask not only how will this affect me, but also how will this affect others? Because every choice, no matter how small, is not just about your story. It becomes a part of someone else's story too. And when we choose wisely with compassion and responsibility, we don't just improve our own life, we uplift everyone connected to us. That is the unseen power of every decision we make. When people look back on their lives, the regrets they carry are often not just about the wrong choices they made, but the choices they never dared to make at all. Missed opportunities, unspoken words, dreams left untouched. These are the silent regrets that weigh heavily on the heart. It is not only the mistakes of action that haunt us, but also the paralysis of inaction. Think of someone who always wanted to start a business, write a book, or pursue a passion, but kept delaying out of fear of failure. Years later, they realize time has slipped away, and what remains is not the sting of failure, but the emptiness of never having tried. A failed attempt can still bring lessons, growth, and resilience, but the absence of an attempt leaves nothing but a question mark. What if? Those two words can be heavier than any failure. Life is full of crossroads where you're invited to take a step forward. Some of those steps are risky, some are uncertain, and some demand courage. When we say no to them out of hesitation, we feel safe in the moment. But safety often turns into stagnation. Later, as we reflect, the things we didn't do begin to matter more than the mistakes we made. At least mistakes teach us. Avoidance teaches us nothing. Even in relationships, regrets often stem from words left unsaid. How many people look back and wish they had told someone they loved them before it was too late? How many wish they had apologized when pride got in the way? The moment passes, the opportunity disappears. And what remains is not the memory of saying the wrong thing, but the ache of saying nothing at all. Silence can sometimes wound more deeply than mistakes ever could. The fear of regret often comes disguised as caution. We tell ourselves, I won't try because I don't want to regret failing. But by avoiding the risk, we create the very regret we were trying to escape. Failure can be overcome. It is temporary. But the regret of never trying can last a lifetime. Failure closes one door but often opens another. Avoidance closes every door and leaves us staring at walls that never move. It is also important to see that the biggest regrets usually come from avoiding decisions aligned with our true values and dreams. If we value family but constantly avoid spending time with them, later in life, that absence becomes regret. If we value honesty but avoid telling the truth to protect ourselves, guilt eventually follows. When we avoid choices that express our truest selves, we betray not only opportunities but our own soul. Interestingly, the people who live most fully are not the ones who avoided mistakes, but the ones who embraced choices boldly, even if they failed. They learned, they grew, they tried again. Their lives may not be perfect, but they are rich with experience and free of the haunting question, what if I had tried? Regret has not come from falling. It comes from never leaping. So when you stand before a decision and feel the weight of hesitation, ask yourself, 10 years from now, will I regret trying and failing, or will I regret never knowing what could have been? More often than not, it is the choice we avoided, not the choice we made, that leaves the deepest scars. Atha. And that is why we must dare to choose, because even imperfect action carries less regret than perfect inaction. Destiny is often spoken of as if it was something fixed, something written in the stars long before we were born. People say, oh, whatever is meant to be will happen. And while there is truth in accepting life's mysteries, also a deeper truth. Our destiny is not something we stumble upon, but something we shape every day through the decisions we make. Life does not simply happen to us. We co-create it through the power of conscious, mindful choices. Every day we are faced with hundreds of decisions, most of them small and seemingly insignificant. What time to wake up, how to respond to a difficult person, what food to eat, how to spend our free time. These decisions don't always feel life-changing in the moment. Yet, when made consistently with awareness, they form the path we walk upon. A destiny of health is crafted by mindful choices of nourishment and movement. A destiny of wisdom is crafted by mindful choices of learning and reflection. A destiny of peace is crafted by mindful choices of forgiveness and patience. The sum of these little decisions is what shapes the direction of our entire life. The danger lies in unconscious living, making choices without awareness, reacting instead of responding, living on autopilot. When we allow habits, impulses, or social pressure to decide for us, we hand over the pen that writes our life story. Months and years pass, and we suddenly realize we have drifted into a life we never intended to live. Mindless decisions create regret. Mindful decisions create purpose. Mindfulness in decision making requires pausing before we act. It asks us to consider not just what feels good now, but what will be right later. It calls us to weigh our actions against our values, to ask whether this step brings us closer to the person we want to be or further away. A single mindful pause before a choice can change everything. Choosing to respond calmly instead of lashing out can save a relationship. Choosing to invest time in growth instead of wasting it can shape a career. Choosing honesty instead of deception can preserve trust for a lifetime. Great lives are not accidents. They are the product of thousands of conscious decisions made with clarity and courage. When we look at people who inspire us, we often see the results, their achievements, their wisdom, their influence. But behind those outcomes are years of mindful choices. The discipline to say no to distractions, the humility to learn from mistakes, a consistency to keep moving forward even when no one was watching. Destiny is never written in a single moment. It is written in the daily practice of mindful living. Even in moments of uncertainty, mindfulness guides us. We may not always know what the future holds, but we can choose to act with integrity, compassion, and awareness in the present. Those choices, multiplied over time, lead us toward a destiny that feels authentic and fulfilling. And when challenges arise, mindful decisions give us the strength to respond with wisdom rather than impulse. Ultimately, destiny is not found, it is built. Every choice is a brick, every decision a beam, every mindful step a piece of architecture in the story of our life. When we recognize this, we stop waiting for destiny to reveal itself and start actively crafting it. We stop blaming fate for where we are and start taking ownership of where we are headed. And in doing so, we realize that the greatest power we possess is not in controlling the future, but in choosing consciously, moment by moment, to create it.